Ah, the human heart and the mind, two of the most complex systems in our bodies, each with its own unique rhythm and language. But what if they can communicate to each other under the influence of, say, psychedelics? Researchers from none other than Imperial College London decided to dive into this mystery, examining the effects of substances including psilocybin, ketamine, DMT, and LSD on the heart and how it interacts with the brain. They found that these psychedelics increased heart rate variability, and heart rate entropy. Curious, isn't it? But it goes deeper. They noticed some correlations, links between these cardiac shifts and the psychedelic experiences reported. And it leads us to something profound, something that could potentially shake our understanding of the therapeutic effects of these substances. But what is this groundbreaking revelation? Just wait and find out. What's up, my amazing and curious folks? I'm your host, Cesar Chagas, always eager to delve into the unknown. And I'm not alone in this pursuit. With me is our brilliant commentator, Sonia. You ready to unravel some mysteries, Sonia?
Absolutely. Cesar Chagas. Hi, everyone. Let's dive into today's intriguing topic.
Fantastic. But before we break down today's enigma, remember to subscribe to the Curiosity Wonderland and hit that bell icon so you never miss a beat of our daily quest for knowledge. All right, let's dive in. So, the heart, this vital organ that keeps us alive, is more than just a pump in our bodies. It has its own language, a language that seems to become more eloquent under the influence of psychedelics like psilocybin, ketamine, DMT, and LSD. And this is not some fringe hypothesis, my friends. The researchers behind this study are from Imperial College London, and they brought some fascinating insights to the table. By analyzing various measures of cardiac activity, such as heart rate variability, and heart rate entropy, they uncovered a dynamic interaction between the heart and the brain during a psychedelic experience. Now you might wonder, why does this matter? We already know that psychedelics can increase the heart rate, right? Well, that's true, but there's more to the story. It turns out that our heart rate isn't as constant as we might think. It varies slightly each time, even when we're at rest. This variability, known as heart rate variability, or HRV, is actually quite important. It's linked to our ability to adapt to different situations, and overall higher HRV is associated with better health. But here's where it gets really interesting. The heart's influence isn't limited to physical health. It can also affect cognition, influencing everything from emotions and time perception to social interactions and even our sense of self. It's a fascinating notion, isn't it? That our sense of selfhood might be grounded in how our brains integrate internal signals, especially those from our heartbeats. So, understanding the heart under the influence of psychedelics is not just about physical effects. It's about understanding how these substances might alter our perception of ourselves and the world around us. And that, my friends, could have profound implications for how we understand and treat mental health conditions. But there's still one question that remains. What does the heart tell us about the psychedelic experience? To answer that, we'll have to dive deeper. Stay tuned. Now, most theories of how psychedelics work have focused predominantly on the brain, but scientists are now emphasizing the importance of the body's role in these experiences. In this study, the researchers argue that changes in involuntary bodily functions, known as autonomic changes, are an integral part of the psychedelic experience, not mere byproducts. From this perspective, they set out to investigate the relationship between the heart and the brain during a psychedelic trip. They asked some captivating questions. Do psychedelics increase heart rate variability as well as heart rate? Or do they do something else to the heart entirely? They were particularly interested in one aspect, heart rate entropy, which is essentially the variability of heart rate variability. It doesn't measure specific patterns, but the diversity of patterns in heart rate fluctuations.
Can you give us an example to better understand this concept of heart rate entropy?
Sure, think of it like this. Imagine you have a playlist of songs. Now, if all your songs are from the same genre, say rock, you'd have low entropy because there's little diversity. But if your playlist includes rock, jazz, country, hip-hop, and classical music, then you have high entropy because there's a lot of diversity. Heart rate entropy works in a similar way, but instead of genres of music, it's looking at different patterns of heart rate fluctuations. The research team discovered that all of the psychedelic compounds they tested, including ketamine, psilocybin, LSD, and DMT, did increase heart rate variability, and heart rate entropy. These changes were then correlated with increases in brain entropy, potentially giving us some insight into the therapeutic effects of these substances. They then decided to take a closer look at DMT. Since a DMT trip is relatively short, usually less than 20 minutes, it provided the team with an opportunity to observe high variability over a short period of time. This, my friends, gives us some extraordinary insights into the relationship between our hearts, our brains, and our perception of the world under the influence of psychedelics. But as always, there's more to the story. So stick with us. The researchers found that heart rate entropy predicted changes in brain entropy much more accurately than heart rate and heart rate variability. Interestingly, these markers each predicted different aspects of the DMT experience as it unfolded, explaining up to 70% of the variation between subjects.
Wait, so does this mean that by looking at someone's heart rate entropy, we could sort of predict how their psychedelic experience might unfold?
In a sense, yes. But it's important to note that each marker had a different predictive power over the dimensions of the DMT experience. For instance, the intensity of experience was mostly predicted by heart rate, whereas challenging experiences were better predicted by heart rate entropy.
That's intriguing. But wouldn't the findings vary with different psychedelics?
Good point. That's why they also examined LSD, which has a larger data set. They found that different features of the LSD experience, like imagery, mood, intensity, ego dissolution, and emotional arousal, correlated in various ways with different biomarkers.
So it's like each psychedelic has its own language that it speaks with the heart and brain.
I like that analogy. It's as if each psychedelic communicates with the heart and brain in a unique way, and different aspects of the experience are tied to different physiological markers. For example, brain entropy was the strongest predictor of imagery, while heart rate entropy was the strongest predictor of positive mood.
And all of this research could have implications for how we approach mental health treatments in the future, right?
Exactly. But, as the researchers point out, these findings should be considered a proof of principle. Larger studies are needed to further understand the connection between these physiological markers and the psychological dimensions of psychedelic experiences. The findings suggest that heart activity is not just reflective of brain activity, but that it is an integral part of the psychedelic experience. We can achieve a better understanding of the psychological effects of LSD by considering models that include both heart and brain signatures and their interactions.
That truly is fascinating, Cesar Chagas. So moving on, what could these findings mean in terms of mental health?
Great question, Sonia. The researchers noticed that the patterns of heart activity they observed under the influence of psychedelics were quite unusual. In most cases, when heart rate increases, heart rate variability decreases. This is typically what happens when you exercise, for example. But in the case of psychedelics, they observed simultaneous increases in brain entropy, heart rate, and heart entropy, which is pretty remarkable. Dr. Garfinkel notes that this unusual profile of heart activity is typically only seen under conditions of intense joy and euphoria. Given that we're increasingly recognizing that cardiac signatures and their interactions with the brain are potentially pivotal for guiding emotional states, this unique signature might be key in understanding the body-brain dynamics underpinning the therapeutic and beneficial effects of psychedelics.
So the heart could potentially be driving the psychedelic states, not just responding to them.
That's a possibility the researchers are excited about. Rosas mentioned that he would like to support counter-arguments to the simplistic view that the heart is just a blood pump with empirical evidence. He suggested that future studies could investigate this relationship between brain effects and heart rate variability, perhaps by altering one system or the other in animal models to see what happens with the coupling. The most exciting part Rosas believes, is that focusing on the heart could change the way psychedelic scientists work. He points out that collecting large samples of ECG data related to psychedelics is easier, less invasive, and more cost-effective than brain imaging. A shift in focus could open up new avenues of research and give us a broader understanding of how these substances affect our bodies and minds. The researchers acknowledged that the uniqueness of this entropic heart effect could partly be due to its difficulty to elicit in a laboratory setting, making it relatively absent from the research literature. However, they offer another, more heartening possibility.
Oh, I'm curious. What could that be?
Well, they suggest that this peculiar autonomic signature may be associated with the very special state of mind often associated with psychedelic experiences, related to expansion, connection, and meaning.
So, the special heart activity patterns they observed could be a kind of physiological signature of these profound states of mind.
Exactly, Sonia. It could be a way our bodies reflect the profound changes in consciousness and perception that these substances can induce. It's one more piece of the puzzle, helping us to understand the complex interplay between our minds, bodies, and these powerful substances. So to wrap up, we've delved into a study that revealed the intriguing effects of psychedelics on the heart and how it interacts with our brain. This research, conducted by a team from Imperial College London, analyzed multiple psychedelic substances including psilocybin, ketamine, DMT, and LSD, and made some truly groundbreaking discoveries. They found that these substances increased heart rate variability, and heart rate entropy, and that this heart activity can predict changes in brain entropy. In essence, your heart isn't just pumping blood during a psychedelic experience. It's adding its own beat to the symphony of your psychedelic journey.
And what a journey it's been, Caesar. It just goes to show that our bodies are even more intricately connected than we previously imagined. There's so much more to learn and understand about the psychedelic experience and its potential therapeutic benefits. To our audience, we hope this episode gave you something to think about. If it did, blast that like button, leave us a comment, and share the episode with your friends.
Yes, let's keep this fascinating conversation going. We're signing off for now, but we can't wait to uncover new mysteries together with you next time. Stay curious.
And as always, thank you for joining us on this journey of discovery. Goodbye for now, from all of us here at Curiosity Wonderland.
Our deep dive into the psychedelic heart comes from a Big Think article titled "The Psychedelic Heart: Scientists Predict DMT Effects from Cardiac Activity," authored by Saga Briggs and published on January 5th, 2024. For those of you interested in exploring this topic further, you'll find the full URL in the video description. All right, now I'm off.